Hi, everybody. This is Michael Broussard of Ask a Sex Abuse Survivor. Welcome to Survivor Stories. Today, we have survivor Penny Beard with us, who has graciously agreed to tell her story and to take your questions. When you want to ask a question, what you need to do is go down to the bottom of your Zoom window where you see Q&A. You click on that, type in your question, and I will read those off periodically as we proceed through the interview. Now, I would like to say welcome, Penny, and thank you so much for being here.
Hello, and thank you for having me.
So usually we start these off asking the survivor to describe the abuse they experienced. And you can do that in as much or as little detail as you choose.
Okay, well, thank you. So I guess my story really starts at the beginning, literally with my birth. My father had been loaded with cancer and didn't have much time to live, and my mother had had a nervous breakdown during my birth. So the state of Pennsylvania took me and put me in a foster home, a temporary one, and I was there till I was 6 months old. And then I was put in a more permanent foster home where I stayed until I was 7 years old. And it was the 70s, so social work was all about reunification. And so the state moved to put me back with my parents. My father, by the way, survived. My mother made it through. So yes, so 1978, I was sent back to my parents. But what nobody knew is that my father was sexually abusing me from when I was 3. So, so with my mother's mental health issues and the sexual abuse with my father, there was a host of other like emotional abuses in there and all kinds of stuff. And then also being split between 2 families, because even though the state sent me back, I was still mandated to visit my foster family every other weekend in reverse. So my relationship with my foster family, I mean, I still have relationships with my foster family. So anyway, I was split between 2 houses. So straddling 2 families and the sexual abuse that went from the age of 3 until he died when I was just a week before I turned 16. And I really thought that's when I was free. But that didn't turn out to be true. So it was just a continuous, emotionally abusive and neglectful relationship with my mother. And there was a couple times in my adulthood where I just did not speak to my mother at all. I had cut her off for a couple of years at a time. But the trauma and abuse followed me into my adulthood. And my first husband, who I had 2 children with, we were young and dumb and had no business getting married anyway. But so he left, and then there was a second husband that I really shouldn't count because it was so brief, but it introduced me to my third time's a charm, the husband I'm still married to. 25 years last year we celebrated. But he's a survivor too. And he didn't have a breakthrough about his survivorship until just last year. And so there's some other conditions that he dealt with as his coping mechanisms as a survivor that were addictions that I had to deal with. So technically, relationally, not sexually abusive, but emotionally abusive trends just continued through the marriage. And so I first went for help in 1998, and had about just under 2 years worth of treatment. But right at the end of that treatment, I had a psychiatrist that threw their hands up at me because I was just too sensitive to the medicines. And I cycled through 3 different meds and just got sick with every single one. And so, but I used marijuana. That always helped and worked. And that's another reason why the psychiatrist was mad too, because I wouldn't stop using marijuana. The psychologist told me that I would never be cured, because of being an incest survivor and a borderline personality disorder, and I could never be cured. And then I was also working with like a licensed practical counselor, just as a woman, because I wanted a woman therapist. But even she got to a point where she's like, well, I've taught you all the tools I can, so there's really nothing left for us to do. And so I kind of got cut loose at the same time by all 3. And my way of coping was alcohol. And so alcoholism developed into blackout alcoholism by my mid-30s. And I just drank for a dozen years. And my children paid a price for that. And but in 2017, I was so suicidal that it just, I've always had to deal with suicidal ideation ever since I was a child. But I meant it. I was done. I'd had enough.
Can I interrupt you for just a second while we're talking
Yes.
about this?
Yes, please do.
I'd ask you the concern for people who might be listening to this. I know that you have the suicide numbers at hand. Could you give those up, please?
I sure do. If you're feeling like you want to hurt yourself, please call 988. It is a national suicide hotline number. And texting is 741-741. So 988 to call and 741-741 to text. Please don't hurt yourself. We need you. We need you. We need you.
Yes. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
But as you were saying.
Yeah, I had gotten into a suicidal knot, is what I've called it. And by the grace of God, I was able to go to accredited trauma treatment in New Mexico, inpatient, 27 days. And they saved my life. They really did. And so, but the hard part and the work really started when I got home. So away from that idyllic world where everybody spoke mindfulness and everybody was trauma trained, but back to the real world. And that's when the real work began of creating a safe environment for myself so I could do the inner child and the healing work. I found you just can't really get a good grip on that kind of work if your environment is not safe to be in. So that's like priority number 1. Gotta create. I am speaking from my safe place. This is where I go when I need to breathe, to cry, to scream, to punch pillows, or just shred paper. I've done them all, trying to express and discharge the trauma. But April 24th, I will be celebrating 6 years of sobriety. And yeah, and so with my husband's breakthrough, and we've been working really hard on daily emotional regulation exercises and working outside to get connected back to the earth and the dirt, and just really get grounded. So there's a whole bunch of stuff I've left out because I'm trying to keep it generalized and safe in telling. So,
So you talked about something that really hits home with me, which is the idea that you cannot heal in a toxic environment.
no,
For me, that was the reason that I left home, was because I was in a toxic environment. There was no way I was ever going to get any better. The previous therapists that you had, were any of them trauma informed or not?
No, this was 1998.
Well, of course,
So,
right.
but I've that opens up a big box of worms for me because I really have it in for the APA, which is the American Psychiatric Association. I've personally protested in front of their headquarters in Washington, D.C. Let's see. The APA, I think, gets in front of and in the way of accredited trauma treatment. And there's no one answer for treating trauma. Like, what works for one person doesn't work for everybody. Like, everybody's got to kind of try and find what works for them. And I really think, I'm sorry that I keep doing this. I really think, because of what I learned in New Mexico, and I called that trauma camp, because to me it was like a campground, and it reminded me of camp, so I called it trauma camp. But they were doing multiple modalities of treatment simultaneously. So it was group therapy, it was individual therapy, it was art therapy, it was equine therapy, it was Reiki, it was acupuncture, it was EMDR, it was spiritual sessions with a shaman. On and on it went. And all of it was just working together, woven together. And I really think that that's part of the key. So you kind of pick and choose what works for you and work them all together. Because I think the idea for healing after safety is that you're trying to get back into your body, trying to get back to the sensations of your body. So you can like feel, like if somebody says, well, what does your leg feel like? And like you can actually sense into it and feel and then report back what you're sensing. So really getting back into the body, and then the mind follows. It begins, the rhythms begin to come back and to come down and calm. So, but it's a challenge, a big challenge, and it's still a challenge. I still get rounds of symptoms that hit me like a bus. And so, you know, and then you're just like, okay, I know where I am. I know the hole I'm in. And I know where the ladder is. So I'm not going to stay here and climb back out and go again. And it's a continuous process. And I don't think it's ever going to stop. You know, it's when a car's frame gets banged up in a derby, they can put it on a rotisserie and they can straighten it out, but there's still always going to be some kinks in the frame of that car because it got banged up in the derby like that. So, but you can still
it's
get
interesting. I'm sorry.
I was saying you can still get that car to run again and run great, but it's always going to have that ding. So
it is interesting because it frames ongoing healing, which is something I very much believe in. That healing is an ongoing process, and that there isn't necessarily an end to this path for me, and I'm fine with that. It actually changed my life when I realized it was an ongoing process, because I stopped dinging myself and leaving treatment for thinking I had failed because I hadn't gotten there. But yeah, that you're constantly healing, that you're constantly working to heal. And you talked about getting back into the body, right? So
paramount. That is paramount. But you can't do that until you're safe. like your environment is safe, your immediate relationships, the one that you've chose to keep because they're functional, that's all got to be safe. Like all these folks have to be safe. Then you can get back into the body. So,
Do you think that, for me, I had to get back into my body because I had learned dissociation as a coping mechanism, and I learned it without knowing that I had learned it. I just knew that my mind, when I was a child, went off somewhere nice and pretty, and for me, it was Winnie the Pooh in the 100-Acre Wood. Went off
oh,
somewhere else. Well,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
everybody has the thing, and I went
yeah.
off somewhere else. And as an adult, it didn't took. I don't think I was. I think I was in my 40s when I learned what dissociation was, and learned I'd been doing it randomly all of my life. Do you think dissociation is what pulled you out of your body?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, in fact, I have a diagnosis of dissociative identity disorder. I do have parts. And I feel like DID, just like everything else, is on a spectrum. And so I know there are folks who experience shifts and they present the smallers, their littles can come out. Mine don't. And I
Hmm.
can almost barely perceive, like I am just now learning who it is that's showing up. For me, there's a 3-year-old, 7-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 15-year-old. And then I really feel like there's an early adulthood cluster. So the voluminous anger, the volcanic rage, that's my 15-year-old. So when that shows up, I know, okay, why is she angry? And so to sit with myself and really think about it from my 15-year-old self's perspective, then I feel like we get on the same page. And then she feels heard. And it kind of just integrates all by itself. The experience, the moment, whatever just happened. And then things calm down again. So, but it's trying to figure out who it is that's showing up that needs the attention. That
That's really
sometimes,
interesting because I don't myself, as far as I know, have DID, but there are definitely different parts of myself. And when you said that thing about the 15-year-old being the anger, the level of my rage against what had been done to me and toward the people who both committed it and those who enabled it was its strongest. And
yeah,
so I feel like I do have those different, you know, those different emotional spaces. And I never thought of them as being tied to a particular stage of life before. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting. We have a couple of questions here. Talia says, "Hi, Penny. Thank you for being here and sharing your story. Congratulations on 6 years of sobriety.
hmm?
So much of what you are saying resonates with me, and I agree wholeheartedly with your assessment of the APA. I think they exist for the insurance companies, not
Yes,
to actually help anyone."
yes. Well, thank you, Talia. Absolutely. It's all about the money. Follow the money. And there really is a revolving door on the front of the headquarters of the APA in Washington
Really?
that tells you everything you need to know about their practice, how they operate. They want repeat business. They want you to keep coming back. They want you to stay stuck. The clients don't have locus of control. You go, I mean, I don't want to poo-poo all over therapists and counselors and psychologists because there is, they have their place. There's a necessity for having trained professionals to help us get through our traumas. But when they limit the accessibility and the amount of treatment or what, because when I went for help in 2017, complex post-traumatic stress disorder was not recognized. It's still not recognized by the APA. But anyway, so I really do think that they get in the way, Miss Talia, of healing. We don't have any like control over our treatment or what we want to be treated with, what we want to try, and it's all decided by the insurance companies, which is crazy. Because we instinctively know what we need, and we know what's working and what doesn't work. And for me, cognitive therapy was like riding a merry-go-round for years and years and years, just going in circles. But when I got to trauma camp and I had art therapy and EMDR and group therapy, that was amazing. I was terrified of group therapy at first, but it was amazing to have 6 other people sitting there listening openly, cheering for you and rooting for you. It's a very powerful experience to have people in real time, like right there. Yeah, get it. Yeah. So, but like I said, it's up to everybody though to figure out how they want to go.
You talk about riding that merry-go-round of cognitive behavior therapy. I rode a therapy I'm going to be able to say it correctly just once. I rode a therapy merry-go-round. Ooh, I did it. For many, many years. And that's when I would give up. I'd be like, well, this is not helping me, or I'm not doing it right, obviously, because it works for other people, because this is what we're supposed to do. And for me, nothing changed. You talk about trauma camp. For me, nothing changed until I got into therapy with my first trauma-informed therapist. And EMDR was one of the things we did. We did several other things. She retired and passed me to another trauma-informed therapist who has been just as good for me. And it's through these 2 people that I've learned the idea of ongoing healing and ongoing therapy that addresses what happens in your life currently, as well as what has happened in your life. If something new comes up because of some set of circumstances, there are tools to work with that. And there are tools that are based in an understanding of someone who lives with trauma as part of their physiognomy. And that makes a huge difference. I think you're 100% right that there's this psychiatrists. I find that a lot, because psychiatrists, of course, are your med managers.
Right.
They just want to put us through this drug, that drug, this drug, that drug. And I do take meds.
Okay. I was just about to say, I don't want to knock meds, because there are chemical assistants that help a lot of people. And so, amen to that. But let's talk about the benefits of marijuana while we're at it. Let's talk about other options. St. John's wort. There's a bunch of natural remedies to assist, but to back up though, if you don't have safety, it does not matter what you throw at it. It's going to keep being the same thing. So talking about that merry-go-round. So if you're trying to,
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'll say we have another question here.
Okay.
Also from Talia. Oh, going back, what is the name of the facility in New Mexico, and how did you find that place? I didn't know there were any inpatient treatment facilities for trauma. I think that is so amazing.
Oh, yeah, it is. Talia. Let's see. In 2017, when I first went looking for it, there were 8 total accredited trauma treatment centers in the country. And the one in New Mexico is called Life Healing Center. And it's a little camp. It really is. It's a little camp on a little hillside overlooking Santa Fe. Beautiful. But pricey. So here we go, back to insurance companies and whether or not your insurance company is going to approve of you being able to get to one of these facilities. So And unfortunately, one of the qualifiers for Life Healing Center is being in crisis suicidally. So either having attempted or I'm going to do it. I'm going to attempt. And so, and I really don't think they should have criteria on, maybe that's strict, but it's like a 30-bed facility. So that's my dream, is to open up trauma treatment centers that are like a 7-Eleven. They're never locked. You're never threatened with being locked up because you come in and you say, I want to die. And that's okay. Well, let's go shoot some pool. Let's play some checkers. Let's play some cards. And you can tell me about it if you want to. If not, and if they don't, you just let them walk back out the door, because again, getting back to the control thing, I think the whole industry treats mental health as if we're kindergartners and that we don't know any better. We don't know how to, that we don't know how to do, that we don't know how to do for ourselves. But I think if patient care was given back to the patients, and the patients had more involvement at an administrative level of their care, that it would help survivors to get that locus of control that got taken away from us when we were abused. So no, I really dislike that about the industry, that they talk down to clients and, oh, there's something wrong with you and only we can figure out what's wrong with you. Baloney. You know, the better informed survivors are, the better choices they can make for themselves. And I would love to see health insurance companies put on really short leashes, if not eliminated. So these conversations can be had right where they're supposed to be, between the therapist and the client, or the doctor and the patient, or just so. And if it were made more available, and because that too is just, it's not available enough. I'm sorry, Talia, to get back to your question. I don't know how many trauma accredited treatments or centers are around now. I hope there's more. But like I said, in 2017, there were only 8 of them. And so, and they're really, really pricey. So, but I think the internet has helped a great deal with getting the word out and getting information out to survivors. Michael, thank you so much for your platform.
Thank you too.
And getting everybody more informed to make better choices for themselves. So
yeah,
but
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying it's everything you're saying. I mean, I'm just saying, I know I'm sitting here nodding, but I'm sitting here nodding because, yeah, it doesn't just apply, of course, to the mental health industry. It applies to it shouldn't be an industry, but the health industry as well. You know,
right.
The health industry as well. Yeah, it's an industry. I had an illness some time back that nobody in the regular sphere could figure out what it was. And I ended up in an integrative medicine practice, and they figured out what it was. They had the medicine, they had the diet to go with it, they had the treatment, and I got better. But the reality is that insurance was not going to cover a single dime of that, and it was a real struggle, and it shouldn't be a struggle when we're trying to get treatment.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that medical issue was trauma related?
Oh, absolutely. I think every medical issue in my life has somehow been trauma related, because it does things to the body.
Yeah.
Well, and also it does things to our ability to go get health care when we need to. In fact, I wanted to get into that with you because we talked previously. Specifically, I want to talk about the bandana you have on and why that is.
Yes. So I'm missing my front 8 teeth. And I believe that that has everything to do with the trauma that I went through for 12 years, and that I neglected my mouth and I didn't brush my teeth. And so as a result, oh, and the drinking and sweet tea, yeah, that'll get you too. But so for me not taking care of my mouth, I lost my front 8 teeth. And I think that is a direct link to what happened to me. And so that's what the bandana is about, because I'm so embarrassed about not having my front teeth. Like, it was 2020 when they came out. And so as horrible as the pandemic was, and people got sick and died, the positive that came out of it for me is that it became socially acceptable to wear a mask or a face covering in public. So I kid with my family and friends that, I feel like Phantom of the Opera now, because I always cover up my face to go out into public. So, but yeah, oh, and absolutely, I think trauma causes all kinds of physical ailments and diseases. And I mean, I think I have body memories where I'll just get nauseous out of nowhere, just nowhere. Is a just feeling of being nauseous, and maybe I'm not paying attention to a trigger, and a trigger popped up and triggered the nauseousness. But so sometimes nauseous just hits me out of nowhere. And here's a trigger warning for what I'm about to say. I've had random tastes of semen in my mouth, just out of nowhere. And so that's when I would go brush my teeth. So just things like that. And so the physical manifestations of the trauma, I think that's something else that we have to deal with too for the rest of our lives. So I'm sorry, did I trigger you?
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, this is part of doing what I do. And the fact that you shared that may be triggering, but it's also in a way empowering too. So, I mean, when you said the thing about random, this is what, yeah, thank you. Say to you as well. The random semen taste in the mouth, it is not something that I've discussed with a lot of people. I think maybe a handful, and to any extent, really only with my wife. But it can come out of nowhere. And and I don't initially know what the hell, what happened, what did I hear, what did I see, what did I smell, what did I don't know. And there it is. But that's the thing though, right? For me, and I think I found for a lot of my fellow survivors, it's not like the abuse is back there, and it's not like your abuser is back there. Your abuser's right like right here. You can be here, they can be here, they can be here, they can be right behind you at any time. And it's not that you're not working hard, and it's not that I'm not working hard to heal. We're doing the work. It's just it is a particular kind of trauma that has that kind of depth to it. We have a couple questions here. Let me get to these. Okay. Oh, Talia, thank you. Michael says, here for you, my friend. Thank you, Talia. And she says, virtual hugs all around. Talia is really awesome.
Thank you.
She is a poet and an artist, and she does a blog called Daily Superheroism. Everybody should look up Daily Superheroism, because she's doing wonderful work. But yeah, it's right there, right? I mean, is that your experience as well? It's like right there.
So if I can go back and borrow a phrase as the book title, the body keeps the score. And so for as long as these memories are, they're like at a cellular level. And so when we do, we see something, we hear something, we smell something, or somebody just, says a random phrase, and boom, I'm back in 1977.
Yep.
And so I wrote a book. It's really more like an elongated brochure, but I go through all the symptoms of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And so that's available on my website. But
which is your
You want
website
that?
is?
Oh, my website is thetigerpaw.com. Oh, yeah, make it easy.
Perfect.
Thetigerpaw.com.
You just
So,
made a wonderful card for the video. Thank you.
cool. Thank you. So, but yeah, going through the CPTSD symptoms and the flashbacks, I just kind of threw everything on that one page about flashbacks, but that I do believe is a flashback. That random taste or those are flashbacks. And so, but when they happen, we're purging them. We're getting that out of us, and that particular piece is no longer going to bug us. It's out and gone.
Mm.
And but like I said, because it's at a cellular level, especially when you have repeated trauma that went on for years and years and years, that's a lot of cells that the body is keeping track of. So, but with continual healing, continuous work, and really connection too, having at least one person who you can be you with. You don't have to edit yourself. You don't have to change anything. They love that you stutter. They love, it doesn't matter what's going on. And for me, that's those that don't care about me not having teeth. But you can just be absolutely yourself with, as long as you've got that one person, the journey can get going, and the continuous healing. You've got to have that connection, because I feel that not everybody, like some survivors have like extended family members that were perps or sitters, or so it isn't always exclusively like family, but these were adults and people who were supposed to take care of us. And so that interpersonal relationship structure for us got built all MC Escher like, it's just crazy, just got the way we were able to put it together. And so that's, I think, a part of the healing too, is going back through those structures and learning how to relate with another person functionally, the way that the way that we were supposed to have been shown and taught and given, but weren't. So
You again, you hit something so central to everything that I go through. And a lot of it has to do with what you just said, which is these were the people who were supposed to protect us, and they didn't protect us. In fact, they, some of them were instrumental in doing it, and some of them were instrumental in allowing it, in making it possible to happen. And I hadn't thought about before, but yeah, I without realizing, I think that I have looked for other connections to repair that broken connection of someone who would actually be there for you. And I find it in my marriage, and I find it in the community. I find it in the survivor community, and in our groups and things like that. Definitely find it there.
the
So your husband, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I was just about to repeating the reciprocity that we didn't get the first go round. So
right. I'm sorry I interrupted your thought. I apologize.
It's okay.
I just get excited when I hear things, and I'm like, oh my God, that's great. So you talked about the fact that your husband, who you are with now, your third husband, there was a time when, you're both survivors. There was a time when that was a mutually negative situation.
Yeah.
How did it come about for each of you, for both of you, that it became more mutually beneficial in more recent times?
It came about because my healing work was getting undone by his ignorance and his continued toxic patterns. So I'll just go ahead. He's given me permission. He is an intimacy anorexic. And I don't know if you've heard this term or not. It's pretty new on the scene. Dr. Douglas Weiss is pretty much the doctor who coined it. And if you tool around YouTube and put in intimacy anorexia, you'll get some stuff now. But intimacy anorexia is the deliberate withholding of emotional, sexual, and spiritual intimacy. So they withhold intimacy on purpose. It's a coping mechanism. One of its causations is childhood sexual abuse. So not only was he, or it was, he's doing much better now. He's really worked hard at emotional recognition and sharing, and so but he didn't have that breakthrough, like I said, till last year. So I had my breakthrough in 2017 when I went to trauma camp, came home, stayed sober, was doing EMDR, was doing the therapy work, but everything I was doing was getting undermined when I'd come home, because there would be the lack of connection. And then I took that as, I'm not worthy. And so everything we had just done and everything I had just gotten accomplished in EMDR was getting undone. So I guess it really took until 2021. So after the pandemic, well, not after, but after all that lockdown mess, in 2021, we started with a couples book called The Love Dare. And that kind of opened him a little bit. And then we moved through some Buddhist texts, and that opened him a little more. But it wasn't until we found the name of that channel. I'll think of it. As it's a pretty well-known channel on YouTube for Affair Recovery. That's it. AffairRecovery.com. We started watching videos from their YouTube channel because it was the first time I'd heard anybody else recognize pornography as a form of cheating. And so looking at this as that I was a betrayed partner because of his use of pornography. And so the pornography got gone right after the alcohol did in 2017. But the intimacy anorexia just kept on and kept on. And I finally got to a point where I was like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. We've been married for 23, 24 years. I can't do this anymore with you. I just can't. And so the threat of me leaving, along with these affair recovery videos, and then I stumbled onto a video that we call the D-Day video for us, and it put everything together for him. And he had a realization of the intimacy anorexia, what the pornography had done. Even he had been clean of pornography for 4 years at that point. But so it really kind of hit him then. And so over 2020, the rest of 2022 and like into this year, we've been working really intensely with emotional regulation exercises and emotional recognition exercises. Like we even put emotions in a sentence every day, write them down. And then in the evening, we come together and we share what we wrote down. And there's a couple other affirmation sheets that we do with them. Eckhart Tolle, we've used Eckhart Tolle as a teacher, and it's been incredible for our relating, using some of the teachings of Eckhart Tolle, although that gets into spiritual principles that's a whole another topic, another conversation. So, but he's finally present. He's all in, he's all here. And we're really just working on trying to create the best life we can. So, and gardening.
And gardening.
Gardening helped. It did. It really did. It gave us a project to work on together. And so,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. That being present thing is such a huge deal. I mean, if both people aren't present in the relationship, I've also found that if I'm not present in the world, it impacts me negatively. And I found it a struggle for many years to be present because I had withdrawn so very much. But yeah, it makes a huge difference when you're both in there together, right? It makes a gigantic difference.
Yes.
And that's something that Christy and I have, where we're both here together.
Yes. Both in there together and both rowing at the same time and rowing in the same direction. And yeah, but absolutely presence. That's like our mantra now is here, right now. Because if we're thinking about the past, we're not here. And if we're worried about the future, we're not here. So staying right here, right now, and that's all we have to deal with is right here and right now. And that makes it easier to take it as it comes, especially when it comes to these triggers, to, like I said, the symptoms that crop back up. So like insomnia comes back around for me. Muscle armoring comes around for me a lot. But like I said, the nausea, so just different symptoms. The depression, though, I mean, that's like a huge elephant that just kind of sits on your head.
Yeah.
So
You just mentioned something called muscle armoring, which is not a term I've heard before. Can you explain what muscle armoring is?
Muscle armoring is the large muscle groups that are tightening because you're bracing, you're anticipating,
oh, yes,
you're waiting. And so big, large muscle groups in the body, like my shoulders, stay like rocks because I feel it and get it across my shoulders, down my back, and in my arms a lot. But there are some times that my whole body is just, coiled up and stay like that. And it's tiring and the muscles get sore. So, but that is a recognized symptom of complex post-traumatic stress disorder, according to the NHS.UK.
It's fascinating because you said, you say muscle armoring, and I don't know what that is, but as soon as you started describing what it is, I'm like, yeah, absolutely, yeah. And for myself, and it's not just physically bracing myself, but emotionally and mentally bracing myself. I went through a period of feeling that life was going to be a series of setbacks and traumatic experiences. And the best that I could do was just sort of get through this one and brace myself for the next one. And being present in the moment, in here, and being here for what good that moment can bring, and what positive that moment can bring, and what communication that moment can bring, and what discoveries that moment can bring, has taken me out of the always bracing myself for the next hit. And when I say a long time, I'm not talking about that long ago. I mean, I was still doing the bracing thing in 2020 without realizing it. And the experiences I had between 2020 and 2022 sent me into a spiral of bracing myself because I went through one after the other serious medical crises. And my brain went back to, oh, so you're just bracing for the next terrible thing. And the moment I realized that I was using too much of my mind and my body and myself bracing to be there, to be here, to be now for my relationship with Christy, to be now for my friends who I love, for my friends in the survivor community who I love, for the things I enjoy doing in life, for the things I want to share, for when something unexpected can come in and be good. Sometimes there are good things that are unexpected. That stunned the heck out of me. I had no idea there was such a thing.
Right. Right. So if we can just, I guess, as it was told to me, you know, kind of just hold that yin yang picture in the now. And so, because like doing all this work and the continuous healing, this doesn't mean that we're going to arrive at a destination called healed and it's all done now. You know, okay, all done with that. No, no. So there's always going to be that mixture of light and dark. It's just a matter of breathing a lot and going forward in the now.
Talia says, I am sitting here nodding and smiling as you share your story in solidarity and understanding. And wow, what you and your husband have worked on. It really is amazing. Your story gives so much hope. I have learned so much. Thank you a million times. I would like to add 1,000,001.
Thank you, Talia, and thank you, Michael. Thank you. Yeah. So I guess we're getting close to.
We are, but before we finish up, I would like to give you the opportunity to talk about anything that you wanted to talk about or want to talk about that you haven't yet.
Oh, well, that we have superpowers. We got hurt and they took our innocence. However, we have superpowers. Let's see, I had my list. Oh, here it is. Resilience. Because of what happened to us, because we survived, we have like this huge resilience badge, and now it's a superpower. So you can just break out that resilience badge, and when something seems like it's going to be like this big thing, you go, oh, wait, no. I've been to hell and back. That's nothing now. I can do this. I can do this because I've got my connections, I've got my friends, I've got my community, and I can move through whatever difficulty that comes my way. And we've got creativity because we had to create different ways in how to cope with what was going on. And we've got empathy. Like we are, that to me, empathy and the sixth sense are kind of, they go together. Because again, because we were hurt so deeply, we are able to be compassionate and empathetic to others, and we're able to give them that compassion and empathy openly, which to me, though, that kind of leads into that sixth sense thing that we all have. Just like singing, we can all sing, but we can't all sing like Mariah Carey, right? You know, 3-octave range. But we can all sing. So same thing with sixth sense. We all have it. Just some of us are a little better at it than others, but us survivors, we got trained in how to be really good at it because we had to like be aware ahead of time of what kind of mood somebody was in or how they, like, we had to learn how to take the temperature of a room, and nobody ever taught us that. But now it's a superpower. And so we can kind of feel our way through life as we go. And so, and then resourcefulness, that again, that we, not because we wanted to, but because of what happened to us, we are now able to find those little threads and those little places and different ways to go and different ways to do things. Again, because we had to, but now it's a gift. Now we're able to pull from here and there and put together what we need to help ourselves and help others.
That's fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. We actually have one more comment here that I think is probably the best way to finish up today. And this is from Paul, who is another amazing survivor that I know. And it says, thanks for sharing your experience today. Hearing your experience with intimacy anorexia hit me to the core. I will dig deeper on this issue for myself after today. Thanks to you. And I also would add to what Paul said, thanks to you for being so willing to share so much, and for being so open, and for being amazing. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Paul. And thank you, Michael. And I feel the love, and I'm losing my handkerchief again. But thank you so much. And it was great to be here.
It was great to have you. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Oh, before we go, everybody, real quick, I almost forgot that I have a little advertisement here for you. If you want to make sure you know when all of these events are happening, you can subscribe to our mailing list at tinyletter.com/askasurvivor. That's tinyletter.com/askasurvivor. You'll know about survivor stories. You'll hear about our poetry readings online. You'll hear about our support groups that happen periodically. If you want to tell your own story, or you want to read your poetry online, or participate in any way with what we do, you can contact me at askasurvivor@gmail.com, askasurvivor@gmail.com. Once again, thank you so very much, Penny. I truly appreciate it. Thank you to all of our attendees, and I look forward to seeing you all again very soon.
Okay, sounds good. Bye-bye.